What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp here for the award-winning Fightful.com podcast. I am joined by Showdown Joe live from Japan. We had Matt Riddle live from China. We've had Jimmy Van and Showdown Joe live from Canada. But Showdown Joe live from Japan. What is up, my man?
Everything is good, man. Just it's bright and early here, 8:06 a.m. Been up since 4:30. I'm starting to get used to the time zone change. The body clock is still fighting it off, but yeah, it is what it is, man. It's Japan. Good times. A little crazy last night, but yeah, it's all right. It's all good. Surviving.
Earthquakes and stuff. No big deal.
Yeah, that was my first earthquake. That was I got back to the room after a full day of interviews with the Rizin staff, as well as Joe Warren, and Joe and I went to get a bite to eat real quick, and then I said I got to get back to the room because there was a bunch of stuff that was sent over to me for the interviews for today's show that Joe and I weren't able to get because we were flying in. And literally, Sean, I was sitting in my room, copying and pasting, checking out the notes, like what I want to say on the broadcast, what I don't want to say on the broadcast. The next thing you know, the room just starts shaking. The blinds start moving left and right. My lamp starts moving, and I'm like, wait a second. This is an earthquake. And I grabbed my phone, and I realized, dude, you're 11 floors up. You got no shot. Like, just you're gonna have to wait it out, or you're gonna be running 11 floors, and who knows what could happen. And I was like, man, is this it, Sean? This is how I'm going out. I got so much stuff to do. I gotta do a podcast in the morning. I gotta prep for it. Like, let's go, man. Forget this earthquake crap. And I just waited it out, and I'm like, okay, it's done. All right, everything's cool.
I'm glad to hear everybody's okay. I joked with you off the air that giant cup of ramen fell over and caused an earthquake. I'll segue here. Do you think that ramen maybe has some tainted soup? Because I saw Josh Barnett hanging around with it, and the boy got popped.
I don't know what the deal is with that. We didn't have a chance to talk to Josh. He wasn't exactly in the happiest mood. I was over. If you looked at the pictures that I posted up on social media, I was over on the left side. And the way Rizin has things set up, all the fighters and their coaches and their trainers have their own little tables. So we didn't have real access to them. And then afterwards, I had to run back up. Joe and I had to run back up to do the interviews for the rest of the day, because that's when they gave us the break. They gave us a break to go to the weigh-ins and then back up to doing the interviews. So I didn't have a chance to talk with Josh. But I mean, let's be honest for a second. I mean, history sometimes just repeats itself. And once you're guilty, you've been labeled as being guilty. It no longer surprises people as much anymore.
Lots more to talk about that situation, but we'll see how it plays out. Josh is a weird dude. He's an unusual dude. I'll say that. My limited interaction with him. And, my fight team is trained with him like that. So it was a weird situation for me, but ultimately you got to do your damn job. You got to talk about the guy failing a drug test. And it's happened many, many times before. And he has a pro wrestling career ahead of him whenever he chooses. Whenever he just decides to hang him up, he can fight on events like Rizin and make a lot of money, then go do pro wrestling and make a lot of money.
Correct.
So I wonder if this new regime may just cut him.
It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And the one thing here at Rizin, they do drug tests, but it's the old way of doing things. It's the hey, you don't forget you're going to get tested right before your fight, and don't eat anything or drink anything other than water until after your fight. I wish they would do things a little bit differently here, but this is just the way it is in Japan. And I'm sure that with Rizin, the one thing they keep telling us, and they're open and they're honest, they're fairly transparent, is they're doing things differently than they did with Pride. Step by step, event by event, you're going to see rules modifications. You're going to see changes, especially to weight cuts. Sean, if you miss weight here, you're screwed. You are so screwed. That some of the stuff that I'm hearing, you're losing 10% of your purse right off the top. And that goes back to the promotion. If you miss by a certain amount, you not only start your fight by a yellow card, okay? If you miss by more than a certain amount, you start off your fight with 2 yellow cards. Your opponent gets 10 to 20% of your purse no matter what. And if you win your fight, it's automatically considered a no contest.
Oh,
So guess what?
damn. What?
Make weight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that card. We'll go ahead and start talking about that card. Well, no, wait. There's a couple more news stories. Well, no, we can talk about the Japan card and then get into the news stories because they're UFC related. Darren Cruikshank's going to kick off today's show, which we are streaming live at Fightful.com, both shows. So you'll get to hear our boy, Showdown Joe, do some commentary. Live stream, Fightful.com, live coverage with David Tees. Also, our discussion page. Go over there, hang out, talk some trash, criticize Joe's performance, whatever you got to do to make yourself feel happy, guys. Darren Cruikshank kicking off this show against the 37-14-9 Satoru Kitaoka.
Yes, sir.
Hot diggity damn, I got it right. He's an OG, not Cruikshank. I mean, this is a guy who has fought everybody, like from Kurt Pellegrino to Paul Daly, Carlos Condit, Yoshida. He's fought a lot of dudes. How do you think Cruikshank is going to do against this veteran?
I think Darren's going to be fine. I think he's honestly going to be fine. It'll be the first, 3 or 4 minutes, maybe some trouble. But we all know how Darren fights. Darren doesn't waste any time. It takes him, Sean, 30 seconds, a minute maximum to figure out distance, to throw feints out there, and then really get things going. I can tell you this, Darren's kind of annoyed. He won't show it fully, but he's really annoyed with his opponent right now because when they were done stepping off the scale, he went to shake his hand and, dude brushed him off. And Darren was like, all right, you want to do this with me? Okay. And if people don't know Darren Cruikshank, he's missing a few screws. He's missing a few screws upstairs, and he comes across. He's a hilarious dude, but this is a dude ready for the Armageddon. This guy's ready for the zombies to start coming out. I'm surprised he doesn't have a bunch of guns on him. This guy, he competes in those 3-gun shows, loves his ammunition, and this guy is ready to rock and roll. And he's not a happy guy right now. We're at the weigh-ins afterwards, and I was just talking to him and his team, and he just looked at me. He's like, yeah, this guy wants to do this to me? All right, we'll see tomorrow. And I was like, oh, my God, this is kicking off the show. This is going to be awesome. So, yeah.
Underrated fight on this show is Vadim Nemkov and Vicente. Now, Nemkov had been a highly touted prospect. Then he came over into Rizin and didn't get those easy matchups. He dropped 2 fights there. Got back on track at that infamous Emelianenko Maldonado show, but I wonder if he can be what Rizin wants him to be.
I think it's not just that, because Rizin does want him and the whole Fedor team to continue to sort of raise the bar. Nemkov is one of Fedor's top boys. He's one of Fedor's top guys, and he really wants to see him do well because what Fedor is looking for is the next generation of his team and the Russian mixed martial artists to own Japan, to be those guys. There's only really going to be one Fedor. And can Nemkov and the other guys in the team do it? Yeah, one of them's probably going to be able to do it, but it takes a lot to do it in this type of environment. But the tournament format, the tournament makes champions. The winners of these Grand Prix tournaments always raise eyebrows. It does so well, even over in North America. And Nemkov, he's an alternate. And we all know what happens in these tournaments. I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Daniel Cormier. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys, some way, somehow, get into the tournaments. It's just weird how the MMA gods and the MMA universe puts one of these alternates in a position to win the whole thing. So, yeah, you're right. Keep an eye on this fight here because this could be an interesting scenario if one of the guys on the main in the main tournament format can't continue. These guys are got to fight 3 times, technically speaking, in just over 48 hours. So, someone could be too injured today and not be able to compete 2 days from now.
Miata versus Sauer. I'm excited for this one. Every 2 years, Miata gets dug up to do a New Year's Eve show. He's 40 now.
Yeah.
I know he competed in 2012, and that was towards the end of his active career. He came back in 2014. He's taken another 2 years off, and now he's fighting Andy Sauer. Now, you make a mistake against Andy Sauer, you're probably going to be sleeping. Or at least you're going to be pieced up, and the ref's going to have to help you out. What do you think about this fight?
Well, the thing that Sauer specifically said, and I'll mention it on the broadcast, he's like, Darren Cruikshank was a great opponent. That was his last one. But now he's stepping up even higher. I don't know about that per se, but I think the mentality going into that fight was Darren, quote unquote, was supposed to stand and trade with Andy Sauer. Well, Darren happens to be a smart mixed martial artist, and he's like, yeah, I'll stand with him until he realizes he's in a stand-up fight. I'm going to take the sumbitch down. I'm going to choke him out. And that's not what Rizin probably wanted, right? And despite Darren getting the victory, and I know you and I have talked about this a few times, it's different in Japan, man. They don't want just a victory. They want a show. They want a show. They don't care if you win or lose. Sometimes that's not even important, despite the fact to us in the North American culture, that is the most important thing. Not necessarily in Japan. They want you to put on a show for the fans. And they were expecting, I assume, Darren to stand and bang with Sauer. Well, Darren took that memo and shredded it and said, I'll do what I need to do to win. And I'm sure that if we were talking about this last night about restructuring some of the contracts, because remember, Japan does things differently than what happens in North America, how promoters do contracts. And even Joe Warren's eyes were opening up thinking, oh, really? Wait a second. Oh, huh? That's how you guys, what? Right? So there's things that are probably going to be changing for a lot of fighters. But in this fight here, I'm sure Andy Sauer is salivating at the fact that, he may have someone in MMA that could be willing to stand and trade with him, especially someone from the Japanese culture. And I'll get into more a little bit later on about why in the Japanese culture they'd probably be more willing to stand and bang than any fighter outside of here, because it's a different way here. It's the whole samurai code and the warrior way. So this is one fight that could get ugly, and I could see Andy Sauer having his hand raised in, like what you mentioned, sheer destruction.
Also worth mentioning, the Vicente Nemkov fight is a reserve bout for that open weight tourney. So Nemkov could go from 1-2 in Rizin to 4-2 in Rizin over this weekend, if anything happens. Now we've got these 4 open weight fights. Bruto and oh god, the Fedor killer. I'll just refer to him as that. The Fedor killer. Let's see. And then we have Alekbari Herring, Moldavsky Bahor. Am I saying that right?
Simon Bayor. It's pronounced with a Y.
Who are your 4 picks to move on? And man, I'll say this. Crow Cop and King Mo. Hell of a main event.
You know what? I don't know if that's a hell of a main event. I know
it could be.
I'm super excited to call this fight because I think this matchup can be one of 2 ways. Absolute amazing destruction, just kick-ass action, or like King Mo will be like, no, this guy ain't coming near me. Nope. And if he gets too close, I'm holding him down. I am not giving this guy any space.
I'll say I don't know if King Mo can hold Crow Cop down.
I think he can. I
don't think he can.
I
think Crow Cop's got underrated takedown defense and the sheer size of Mirko Crow Cop in comparison to King Mo. I don't know. Maybe he can. And 35. I mean, King Mo's about to be 36 years old. So time ain't on his side either.
But he will use time in this fight, and he will use time in this tournament. He will take his time. He knows that there's a long road to get to the New Year's Eve show, and Mirko Crow Cop is his first stepping stone per se, or first hurdle. You cannot sit there and stand and bang with Crow Cop. But we all know Crow Cop's got one goal, and it's not to submit King Mo. So look for him. I think all these guys are technically going to want to play each one of these fights smart, but have them end quick, if that makes any sense, right? You don't want to go long. You don't want to get injured. You don't want to have to carry any, because you're not going to have 48 hours to heal up with as much ice as you want. You got to fight in 2 days. So this fight here is one that I think is going to be either crazy, super fantastic, or like, this is King Mo being cerebral. He's playing it smart. Don't hate on him. He's got to fight in 2 days. The favorite in this tournament is Amir Alekbari, and people are like, who? Yeah, I would suggest taking a look at who Amir is. I would suggest taking a look at the fact that he's a 4-time world champion in Greco-Roman wrestling. I would take a look at the fact that his last fight against Joao, people were like, he's going to get hurt. Dude, he put this dude in a crucifix, and it was ugly.
Well-versed in the tournament format is this guy.
Yes. Yeah, and he is a big dude, quiet, obviously a giant, and he's bordering on cocky, egotistical / extremely confident right now. Could care less that he's fighting Heath Herring, who obviously hasn't competed in a very long time. And he just doesn't even think. When I asked him flat out, I said, Amir, I said, you're the favorite in this tournament. You're like a minus 120, 150 on some sites. And he just looked at me. He's like, yeah. He goes, I'm going to be a bigger favorite as this tournament moves on. And when I'm done this tournament, I was like, okay, so you don't want to be humble? All right, good. He's ready. Yeah, and he looks a little bit smaller. His weight's the same, but he looks a little bit smaller than what he did when he competed in September. That to me means he's shredded some of the fat, the water weight around him, but kept the muscle. So Heath's going to have a very difficult fight. But imagine Heath pulls this off. It'd be a nice little renaissance here.
Yeah, Alekbari was a 2-time world champion. Got stripped of one of those. I think it was the Budapest.
Yeah,
one in 2013, and one was at 96 kilograms, the other at 120. So weight not a concern for the guy at all. He doesn't care about what size anybody else is. 29 years old. You got to think. If he wins this tournament, oh boy, is he going to have some suitors? Is he going to have some suitors? Before we get done talking about this portion of the show, I will just say, we won't preview the fight, but I am glad Rin Nakai is back in Japan.
I don't want to say anything. Oh, when she walked out to the weigh-ins.
Thank you, Rizin. Thank you, Rin.
When she walked onto the weigh-ins, I was just like, "Oh man, please don't." I looked at my phone. My Twitter started, after the pictures got posted, I was like,
"Well, come on now. Her ramen noodle costume, somebody already wore it. And you can't. It's a rule of fashion, okay? You can't wear the same thing as somebody else."
Yeah. Her attire had many of the people around me, and I'm like, "Don't." You're not fishing me into this conversation. She can wear whatever she wants to wear, bring out whatever whips and masks she wants to wear, and be scantily clad as much as she wants. No, I'm not. You're not getting any other comment than me other than me describing what she's wearing. I'm moving on. It was just what the hell's going on here. Wow.
We have, for the second card, of course, the open weight semifinals and finals. But then we have Crazy Horse versus Kimura in a rematch. Now, as soon as you got back from Japan, I asked you, Joe, was that a work? And you said, nope, it sure wasn't. And they're running it back. So how do you think it plays out?
What's that? What was the last part you said?
How do you think this one plays out?
I don't think it's going to go as many people think it's going to go. Can I just leave it at that?
Sure. I'm just glad to see Crazy Horse back in the fold.
Yeah, he's. Are we allowed to say that he's a special guy?
Yeah, I'd say so. Why not?
Okay.
On maybe the second best run of his career. Winning 3 or 4 fights is probably the second best run of his career. I know he won 4 straight fights in like 06, 07, and he's had a couple of those win streaks, but another OG. I mean, you got a lot of guys that have been fighting since like 2000 on this show. Another said OG, one who's been fighting since 96, Sakurai. Man. Like, I look at this card and I'm like, they got Sakurai. It's been 3 years. And before that, he was one of those just guys that's like, I'll fight every New Year's Eve. That's about it. Good to see him back.
If there's any props out there on any of the books that will give you money on the biggest ass whooping on this card, I would put money on Sakurai versus Sakata.
Oh yeah.
Sakata called out Mahak and said, "In my final fight, I would like to take on Sakurai." We basically, he told us yesterday that they've been fighting for so long. They've basically been on so many different organizations together, away from each other, competed for, but they've never fought. And there's something that guys like yourself, myself, the North American audience, the North American fans don't understand about the mentality of fighters here in Japan. And one of the things that they'd like to do here, I was never aware of this until yesterday, is in their final fight, they want to go out like a warrior. They want to die on their shield. They want to get an ass whooping, and they generally select the one person basically who they want assigned to give them that ass whooping. Sakata called out Sakurai for this very reason. And as you know, Sakurai hasn't competed in 3 years, and Sakurai believes it's his duty to do this. It sounds so weird. It sounds like a B movie. It sounds very strange, but Sakurai has a job to do. And he knows that we look at it in a way where it's like, that dude just called me out, I'm gonna kick his ass. Here it's like, you take the opportunity with honor. It's going to be a badge, and you go and you do it, and you know this guy is going to come at you with everything he has because he's willing to die in that cage, or in that ring, excuse me. And Sakurai's job is to put an ass whooping on this guy to make sure that when he walks away from the sport, he can, or when Sakata walks away from the sport, he can walk away with his head held high, strictly in defeat. That's not something that we're used to in North America. And Joe Warren, flat out in the conversations with both guys, says, "Hell no, in my last fight, I'm looking for a win. I'm looking to whoop that guy's ass and win." Here it's different. In their last fight, they want to take an ass whooping, and an ass whooping so bad that they get a standing ovation from the crowd. This screams of Enson Inoue, in his fights. So this is potentially what's going to happen. I would suggest, people not miss this fight specifically, because if you're into ass whoopings, this is probably going to be your fight.
You mentioned Joe Warren. Commentary partner? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's a good one. We'll talk about that in a minute. Sakata hasn't fought in 13 years. I know this because I watched him wrestle for about 6 or 7 after that. Pro wrestling, not amateur wrestling. Interesting. A couple guys who've been fighting since the old days. You talk about the old days. Gabby Garcia's opponent has been around since, I think, the American Civil War. They lost one senior citizen. They found another to replace her. Gabby Garcia is going to win this fight, but if she doesn't, that would be a catastrophe. What do you make of this matchmaking? It's weird.
It's the spectacle and the show of Japan. It's the entertainment value. My only hope in this fight is that Gabby doesn't hurt her. Is that Gabby simply, works her. She wants to work her boxing. She wants to work her Muay Thai that she's now sort of learning and falling in love with. I hope she doesn't. I hope she gets this fight down on the ground and just simply submits Hara. I mean, we're talking about someone who's 49 years old. Look, if you're older than me, you shouldn't be competing in MMA. That's just probably not a good idea.
My thing is, it's like Katya Kavaleva has been calling out Gabby Garcia, and it's like, hey, she's 6'5", she's an accomplished kickboxer, but she didn't get that fight, and now she looks like she's WWE bound. By the way, she's got a tryout in February. I shouldn't say bound. People will go out there and say that she's signed. What do you make of them putting that matchup in there instead of a competitive one? Because if you're not going to find any competitive fights, do you think there ever is a desire to find a competitive fight for Gabby Garcia, or do you think she'll be just this promotional machine? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a Japan tradition, but I thought this was a good 100%. Opportunity.
There's one opponent that they're scouting as we speak. To take on Gabby Garcia, probably in the next show.
Fabulous Moolah.
No. This girl should be competition. If they can get her, she'll be some serious competition for Gabby. And it's a work in progress. Let's just say that. But there are people out there that are more than willing to take on Gabby Garcia. It's just the right deals have to be struck. We got wind of it not yesterday, the day before. Sorry, excuse me, no, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. So we'll see what happens for the next show. First, Gabby's got to take care of Hora first, and we'll see what happens there. Gabby is here with Cyborg, and she tried to set up a sparring match with Cyborg because obviously she got wind of when Tito Ortiz did the same thing with me, Big Bear. So while we were interviewing Gabby, Cyborg was sort of lurking around like a shark, just staring at me, and then she got called over to the Japanese press and had to do some interviews, and then came afterwards and said, "Hey, Joe, we're training at 9 o'clock. Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be there at midnight when you're exhausted." Right? And I said, "No, even still." Right? So I saw Cyborg this morning for breakfast with a bunch of people. She's happy-go-lucky, but unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to speak with her alone to get a bunch of things out of her, obviously, that you and I would love to discuss on here. But hopefully, she's going to be here over the next 2 days. So hopefully I'll have a chance to, there's plenty of places downstairs to have a coffee or just shoot the breeze. So no, I won't be sparring her. I won't be getting anywhere near her with any gloves and a mouth guard. But I'll try and have a conversation with her and get more information out of her.
One of the best matched fights this weekend, I think, is this Kron Gracie Kawajiri fight. Now, if Gracie pulls off a win here, oh boy, you got to start. I mean, this is not like mismatch thing. Kawajiri's lost a couple fights, his last 2 fights in the UFC, but before that, I think he had won 3 of his last 4, and then in the UFC, he had won in Dream, he had won in 1. He had been on quite the hot streak. These were decision losses. All of his UFC losses were decision losses. If Gracie can pull this one off, we're talking about a real prospect. That makes me excited to hear the Gracie name associated with prospect again. You don't hear that a lot these days. How do you think this one goes?
Before I give you my thoughts on this fight here, I do challenge anyone and everyone out there to take one more look at this card here. There may be names on here that you don't know about. If you watch the last Rizin event and you start looking at how these matchups are put together, this has the potential to be the fight card of the year. And mark my words on that. And I'm not saying that because I'm doing play-by-play on it, but when you look at Ursin Yamamoto on this card taking on Hideo Tokoro, for those that don't know who Rina is, and she's taking on Hannah Tyson, Rina is basically your Ronda Rousey of Japanese MMA. Okay? She is absolute. She's beautiful. She's gorgeous. She's a bombshell, and she's an ass kicker. Mark my words. You'll know the name Rina real soon. Miyu Yamamoto's fighting on this card again. She's taking on Andy Wynn, who's the King of the Cage champion. There's some crazy, crazy fights on this card here. But this Gracie situation, Kron Gracie against Kawajiri. Kawajiri, I've made no bones about it over the history of my mixed martial arts career, has always been one of my top 5 favorites ever. I finally had a chance to meet him. Spoke with him at length about his career. And he's under the same assessment as myself, Heath Herring, same assessment as Joe Warren. Kron Gracie is the evolution of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Kron Gracie is what any of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu followers have always wanted. An aggressive Jiu-Jitsu fighter who's more than happy to stand and bang and use a very aggressive grappling and submission skill set, the way we all thought Hoist did back in the day, the way we thought Renzo Gracie and Ralph Gracie did back in the day. This is the modern Gracie right now, and he's a different Gracie than you may think of when you think about Renzo and Hoist and all the others. This is a long-lost Diaz brother, okay? He lives and breathes and trains with Nick and Nate Diaz and Jake Shields and Gilbert Melendez. This is a modern-day, I'm not going to say thug, but a crazy mofo. This guy here is no joke, and he's willing to die in there. He is the son of Rickson Gracie, but this guy is a bad mother beep, if you know what I'm saying. So, yeah, this is the co-main event. And this guy pulls no punches. Kawajiri knows what's up, believe me. And Kawajiri is going to do whatever he can to thwart any sort of momentum. Although, Kron's momentum has been, it's not crazy, it's not hectic, but he knows that a loss to Kron Gracie will elevate Kron big time in the world of mixed martial arts. And like I said, this is the co-main event. We have the semifinals on this card. We have the finals of the Openweight Grand Prix. We got some badass. I mean, Ursin Yamamoto and Takoro. That right there, that could headline a lot of cards here in Japan. And there's one kid that I was made privy to. I can't even pronounce his name properly. I'll tell you right now, Sean, you're going to love this guy. Tenshin Nasukawa. Okay? Tenshin Nasukawa is fighting today. He's taking on Nikita Sapun. Tenshin, I think, is 19 years old. He won the Lupini tournament in Thailand. This is a Muay Thai murderer at 19 years old. Still in high school, still lives with his parents. When they announced his fight, his high school basically was like freaking out. This kid potentially is the future here at Rizin. And I can tell you one thing about Rizin. People know that it's Pride Revisited, Pride version 2. Based on my understanding, 2017 is going to be a potentially badass year for Rizin. So I'm just throwing it out there.
As mentioned, we are streaming both cards live on Fightful.com. Go to our live coverage and discussion to see that. Very excited for that. We've got a little bit of UFC news before we talk UFC 207. We previewed the card last week as well, but we're going to jump into it again this week. A fight that won't be happening. Cain Velasquez, Fabricio Verdum. Now, Joe, imagine being booked to fight inside a cage and going on a media tour where you tell everyone that you have a back surgery scheduled and that you've been smoking weed to dull the pain. I wouldn't expect to be on that fight card much longer. Would you, Joe?
Well, for those that watch the Fightful.com podcast on a regular basis with you and I, you're the one that came out and opened up the world's eyes and ears to this situation, because I kind of brushed it off. I'm like, why would you say that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that, Cain? And yada, yada, yada. You came out and said, this guy's not fighting. Joe, this guy's not fighting. No way. And I was like, Sean, yeah, you never know. You'll just, he'll be fine. Blah, blah. You were right. From the very beginning, you were 100% right. This dude is not going to fight. Lo and behold, there you have it. And it sucks because Cain Velasquez's career, the vast majority of that window that he could be, let's be honest, he could have gone down as the greatest heavyweight of all time. Okay, he took out Brock Lesnar, was on this run, just the Junior Dos Santos fights, and then he gets messed up, and then he gets injured, and then he gets messed up, and then he gets injured and injured and injured and injured, and before you know it, he's going to be just simply broken down, too old to compete, especially in a division with such, where there's not that much talent like every other division. This guy could have gone down as one of the greatest of all time, and unfortunately, I don't think he ever will, just because of these injuries. And it sucks because no one deserves to be injured that much, but the reality is he keeps getting injured. So something has to be done with Cain Velasquez, and that's not just back surgery, Sean. A lot has to be done. And take a look at this guy and like, dude, you need to get to 100% before you start training again.
He's withdrawn from 3 fights since 2014. He has fought 7 times in 6 years. Before that streak, he had fought 7 times in 2.5 years. Fabricio Verdum was offered Junior Dos Santos, and Dos Santos said, well, he turned down the fight. As it turns out, he accepted the fight, but tried to modify the terms. He wanted more money, and he wanted an immediate title shot if he got that win. The more money, sure. A little bit of more money, yeah, I see that. Different kind of fighter. Immediate title shot, that's trying to hold the company hostage. I don't blame for the UFC for not doing this.
Then again, would you have been surprised? They said, yeah, he gets an immediate title shot. Then afterwards, not going to happen.
Sure. Give him an interim title shot.
Yeah. Right?
There's a report that UFC 207 will be Mike Goldberg's final event as a UFC commentator. Dana White told Sportsnet prior to UFC 206 that he was looking to assemble his dream team of commentating, and it implied that Joe Rogan was a member of this dream team of commentating. Now, Goldberg, if nothing else, incredibly loyal. He passed up a 6-figure payday to not show up at a UFC event in 2005 by the WWE. I would imagine WWE's probably still interested in him. I don't know what that would mean for some of the guys they have. He's 52 years old. WWE has hey, they got Mauro Ranallo recently, so I don't think anything's out of the question. I want to speculate on who will replace him, but I have no clue. I don't have any damn idea. Are you surprised by this move? It's been rumored for a while.
No, I'm not surprised by this move at all. The problem is the fact that it came from Sportsnet. People automatically link it to me or associate me. And I can assure you, I have not been contacted by the UFC. Remember, this is an organization that wouldn't even credential me for their show in my own backyard. But I do play-by-play for one of their properties on UFC Fight Pass.
Yes.
That does not mean
but we're the award-winning Fightful.com now. Come on.
That is correct. That is correct. I am hearing Jim Rome, excuse me. But I mean, can I say I've seen this coming for a long time? I definitely have. I think there was a change coming. And of course, when you have the new owners coming in, there's going to be some changes. There just always is going to be changes. And it starts at every single part it doesn't start. It will affect every single part of the company. And this is just another example here. So am I surprised that goalie potentially is going to be gone? This is his last show. Not at all. In terms of replacements, who knows? And nothing will surprise me anymore with the UFC. It is what it is, and it's going to happen the way it's going to happen. I want to wish Goldie the best of luck because he was pretty cool to me. We did a couple features on him before when we had UFC Central. But to all those asking, nope, I have not been approached by the UFC, and nope, I will not be approached by the UFC. You can guarantee that 100%.
Chael Sonnen dropped the little nugget that it might be Jim Rome, as you mentioned. Sonnen, usually when he feels comfortable enough to drop that information, Joe, usually right.
Bingo.
So, I mean, he is a journalist. Chael Sonnen is a journalist. He breaks news. He has a show. He works for ESPN and commentary. It's crazy to say Chael Sonnen, the guy who used to lie through his teeth to sell pay-per-views, is a pretty damn reliable journalist. UFC 207, we don't know. I think Joe will be at the arena in Japan when we do this post show, but we will be doing a post show right after the event. Might just be me and might have a guest. Don't know how that'll work yet, but we will have a post show right after, and then we'll talk to Joe about it when he gets home. Alex Oliveira, Tim Means kicks off this show, and this is a hell of a way to kick off a show.
You think? This is going to be ugly. The Dirty Bird against the Cowboy? This is there's going to be some shins flying in this fight. Can we say that?
Yeah. Also, oh, wait, before we jump into this show, did you see the ratings? The UFC 206 popped on Fox the other night.
No, I did not.
Oh, my gosh. Like the third highest ratings that they've ever done ever on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve showcase of UFC 206 outdid everything on TV. It was the highest rated thing. It beat It's a Wonderful Life.
That's impossible because that Toronto show sucked. Nobody was supposed to watch that show. It was the worst card in UFC history. Boycott, the worst card in UFC history.
Fantastic numbers.
Cue the broken record. How many times have we heard that about UFC shows and other mixed martial arts events? It sucks and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it sucks. Okay, don't go. Don't watch. Don't show up. I'll be there, and I'm going to enjoy every freaking minute of it. Thanks for calling. Drive home safely.
We have seen shows, UFC 206 on Christmas Eve, a replay, do awesome numbers. We saw Van Zant Watterson, a couple of people that a lot didn't expect to draw big ratings, and it just got bigger for that main event, drew big ratings. Valentina Shevchenko versus Holly Holm drew big numbers. That's real good news. That's real good news for the UFC, who for the first half of this year had been a real pay-per-view commodity and not a television commodity. And as they get closer to that renegotiation period, they are becoming a very, very hot television commodity. So, and WME IMG has to be happier than a pig in shit, Joe, over that with all the money they put into this.
You're absolutely bang on. And just real quick, if I could just take a little sidebar here, Sean. Do you remember was it Christy, the boxer, Christy Martin, is that her name? The coal
Yeah.
miner's daughter. Layla Ali. Who else did women have in boxing back in the day that were quote unquote pretty big? Castro was a kickboxer. But these are all, but these were all women that fought on pay-per-view cards. Am I correct? They never fought on free television.
Yeah.
Just goes to show you these ladies with Paige and Michelle and Valentina and Holly, Rhonda. People have always, some way, somehow, truly appreciated, whether they consider it a sport or a spectacle. They will watch women compete in combat sports, and I think it's smart that the UFC has taken massive advantage of this. Something boxing wasn't able to do and had every opportunity to do so for the longest time, and they couldn't do it. And look at UFC and what they're doing right now. Look at what they're doing here in Japan right now. That's the one thing about Rina that I was mentioning before, Sean, is Japanese mixed martial arts. Women's Japanese mixed martial arts is still nowhere near what it is in North America. The girls and the ladies in the promotions here are trying very, very hard to do what the UFC and what other promotions have done in North America, making it mainstream. There's a cultural shift they're trying to do here in Japan. And Rina, who is the poster child, in my opinion, is going to be at the forefront of this. Mark my words, we're talking about a big paradigm shift here in Japan, hopefully very, very soon. And you're going to see the same thing that the UFC is doing right now in North America with these ladies. It's going to happen here in Japan as well. But you got to give kudos to the UFC, Dana White, and the previous Zuffa regime for doing what they did, for finally believing, this can go back to Scott Coker with Miesha Tate versus Ronda Rousey and the building of Gina Carano. So there's a lot of things that mixed martial arts promoters knew and tried and did correctly that the UFC is obviously doing even better now and benefiting from, that boxing just simply couldn't do.
Fantastic points there. Back to UFC 207. We got that banger. Tim Means, Alex Oliveira kicking off the Fight Pass show. I wish that would have been put on the main card over Smoka and Ray Borg. Like, Smoka and Ray Borg is the type of fight you put on.
Your boy, Ray Borg.
Yeah. Smoke is probably winning that fight. We won't talk a lot about that. Oliveira Means, though, if you got a fight that falls out like Velasquez Verdum, Oliveira and Means is the type of fight you want to slide into that spot, because they're going to leave Hendricks Magny where it is for the Fox Sports 1 stuff. You're not going to see a lot of FS1 main events get moved up because there's already programming material and promotional material out for that. Now, that fight's going to be great. We got a couple of fights that are going to be interesting to watch, in particular on FS1, because if Mike Pyle or Brandon Thatch lose, that might be it for them. This is a real gift for Brandon Thatch, because 4 straight losses, you're gone. You're gone. You're done, especially in this cost-cutting regime. Mike Pyle, he's facing Alex Garcia. Alex Garcia has been as inconsistent as Mike Pyle has been as well. Mike Pyle, another one of the fabled MMA fighters of history, with Kimbo, 6 months of sprawl training, C-level cane, motivated BJ Penn, Brock Lesnar without a surgically removed butthole. Jim Mike Pyle is considered a legend in the sport. The cage Mike Pyle is considered a really solid guy.
Have we officially made this 8-man bracket yet?
Like I said, I got the C-level cane, motivated BJ Penn, Brock Lesnar without surgically removed butthole, Jim, Mike Pyle, Kimbo, 6 months of sprawl training. I got 5. I got
Vitor.
5.
Vitor.
TRT Vitor.
We're at 6.
Adding him to the list.
Okay, we need 2 more. We'll figure it out. All right. Yeah, this I think you made a good point about the Garcia being inconsistent. I think you're bang on with that. So this is going to have to be a wake-up call for a lot of fighters. I mean, I know I said it last time. I can't believe I'm talking about Brandon Thatch in a manner that, it's like he hasn't even really had a career in the UFC, right? It's just been, you made it to the big show, and unfortunately you're just not able to cut it. Or was it bad matchmaking where you throw it in, to the wolves too quickly? I don't know what it is. I just never thought I'd be talking about Brandon Thatch in this manner. But yeah, it is a must-win for Thatch. I think it's a must-win for Pyle. It's a must-win for Garcia. There could be some drastic changes coming up after the show.
We have the young Italian Marvin Vettori taking on old Shoeface. Now, Shoeface won that tough Brazil tournament. He's fared pretty well. Since tough, let's see. I think he's had 9 fights, including tough, and he's only lost 2 of them. Now, you never know where the dude's going to fight is the thing. Middleweight, heavyweight, everywhere in between. But if Vettori, who is, I think he's 11-2, 23 years old, won 6 straight, this would be a hell of a way to put yourself on the map in the UFC. He got that win at UFC 202. Good card to start yourself off on. This one's another nice one to be on. So you got a guy that's got a few more eyeballs on him than would usually be on him, with the benefit of McGregor and Rousey. This is a little underrated fight. This is a peek into the future, Joe.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And have I ever been accused of being biased towards Canadians? Maybe.
Italians.
Listen, that's my bloodline. You know, I'm a first-generation Canadian. I come from the Italian. I got an Italian background, and Vettori is a bad dude. I like what he's doing. If I had to say, I would change a few things with what he does outside of the cage, but in the cage right now, I think he's developing very, very well. I think he's got a bright future, and like you said, we're getting a glimpse of it into it. You know, on this card here, there'll be a lot of eyeballs on him. I don't know that the UFC, quote unquote, and I know Dana would be the first person to say this, and so probably with Joe Silva. Although I disagree more with Joe Silva and or with Sean, that they're doing this strategically with him. It could just be the perfect storm beginning to brew. You know, catching lightning in a bottle with this kid, because it's taking time. He just happens to be on these cards where a lot of eyeballs are on. So yeah, I think he does emerge victorious. I don't think it'll be easy, but I think he does walk away with his hand raised.
By the way, Dana White has confirmed UFC 207 is Goldberg's last event. He said that he doesn't know who's going to replace Goldberg, but we'll know by July if everything goes my way. We're still in the running, Joe.
No.
Yeah, we're not. We're not in any way.
No.
Johnny Hendricks, Neil Magny. I like this fight for a couple of reasons. Magny is just underrated, that guy. To lose 2 fights like he did against Moraes and Basinski, and then go on the absolute tear that he did. What was it? 10 of 11 fights, and he lost to Lorenz Larkin, who hasn't been re-signed yet. This is such a good matchup, because for Johnny Hendricks, this is a guy, if you beat him, you can still hang. You can still hang at the top of the welterweight division. And if you're Neil Magny, it means that you belong near the top of the welterweight division. Really good matchmaking, in my opinion, Joe.
I think it's interesting matchmaking because, you know, the fact of the matter is Neil is fighting a guy with a name, right? He's fighting a guy who's a former welterweight champion in the division. And going back to, you know, the stories that I spoke about when George St. Pierre fought Johnny Hendricks, and how, you know, there were concerns about Johnny Hendricks and George bringing in Vada, and how that backfired into George's face because the UFC and the media spun it completely differently than what George and his camp were trying to do. Ever since, you know, USADA came in, I'm not accusing Johnny of anything. I'm just kind of looking at George and everyone going, wait, maybe you guys, did I miss something here? Maybe you guys are right. But ever since USADA came in, we've noticed Johnny Hendricks' career sort of dropping down. You know, he went from welterweight champion to now fighting on the Fox prelims, or fighting on the Fox as the main event on the Fox prelims. He's fighting Neil Magny. This is a guy that was once the champion of the world, quote unquote, beating George St. Pierre when he, you know, it'll be a loss on his record. Then having those wars with Robbie Lawler, and then, you know, all of a sudden dropping down. The pressure's on Johnny Hendricks in this fight. If there's a guy who can't lose, I know we talked about Thatch and Pyle and Garcia, but if there's a guy who cannot lose on this card here, it is Johnny Hendricks. And I think Neil Magny is going to push that pace and really punish Johnny. And don't be surprised if he finishes off Johnny late in this fight.
We move on to the main card, and quite a main card it is. Any predictions in the Smolka Borg fight before we move on?
What is Smolka's karma like right now?
I haven't heard of him doing anything.
I think he's fine. I think Smolka wins this fight. I think he learned from that last fight. Just, I call it the Nick Diaz thing. Just don't talk. Just go out and fight. Don't ruin your karma. So I think he'll be fine.
This is a rather important fight in that flyweight division, who can use all the contenders they can get, to be honest. So, yeah. Tarek Saffiedine, Dong Hyun Kim moved up to the UFC 207 main card. Joe, who you got here?
Oh, man,
Tarek Saffiedine has never been able to replicate what he did in Strikeforce.
Yeah, right? I mean, you and I can talk till we're blue in the face about Tarek Saffiedine, right? You just don't know. You just don't know which one shows up, because every time you think he's done, or that's it, you know what, he's reached his peak, he pulls off this Muay Thai expedition and this striking and this beautiful combinations and landing these liver shots. And, and it's like, oh, okay, well, there he is. Finally, he's back. And then in the next fight, you're like, yeah, he's going to smash through whoever he fights. And, oh, yeah. And then, oh, wow, what just happened there? Right? So I don't know. I mean, there's always a couple of fights on each card where I break it down. I look at the numbers. Paper doesn't fight paper, Sean. And I'm like, you know what, ref? Just signal them to fight. Let's just let them figure it out, because it's just too hard. I'd like to take a look at the lines on this fight, to be honest with you. I didn't have a chance to look at it just yet. But to me, it feels like a pick'em fight. I could be wrong, but it feels like these lines are at -110, -120 for one guy. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look just yet, but
Dong Hyun Kim -133, Saffiedine +108, so it's very close.
Yeah. So you see what I'm saying? It just feels like it could go either way, and I guess they're favoring Dong Hyun Kim. Okay, I got it. Yeah, I'll give the slight edge to him. I think that does make sense. We just don't know about Saffiedine. It's not that he's inconsistent. It's just that you genuinely don't know. You sincerely don't know what to expect now.
He has only fought 4 times in about the last 3 or 4 years. He never fights. Since January 12, 2013, he has fought 4 times. Rough. We have, oh boy, we get into the fun stuff here. Now, this is, last week I said TJ Dillashaw versus John Lineker was less good Dominic Cruz versus better Cody Garbrandt.
Arguably one of the greatest assessments before a fight ever. Yes, go on, continue.
I can't wait for this fight. Like, you see this smile. This is a legitimate smile of excitement on my face. Dillashaw at -250. Lineker at 190 plus 195. Actually, now those lines have moved. Lineker a plus 185. Dillashaw a -135. Or -235. -235. Sorry.
Holy shit! Sorry. That would have been a massive change right there. Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yes. So the lines are getting closer. Okay. That makes more sense. So the money's starting to come in on Lineker, which kind of makes sense. I wonder if that's where that money is coming from. Is it the probably not the hardcore fan, because the hardcore better will probably do the initial bets, and then the newer fan getting closer to the show is probably putting on some money against Lineker, looking for that knockout. So there could be some overhype heading on to Lineker. There's a lot of mathematics that go into that. I love your assessment, man. I really love the way it's surface level, which is sometimes fun, but I think you're absolutely correct. This is a good fight, not just because of the two names, but from this is that fight, Sean, where, if you and I ever have a chance to sit down together and watch an event, and we look at big names competing or names that we both like, this is the fight. You'll be elbowing me or smacking me in the back of the bald head and be like, hey, stupid, breathe. It's okay. Relax. Because these are those fights that I sit there and I just like, you just like, I remember Dominic Cruz and Uriah Faber one time when they fought, and I don't think I took a breath that whole first round. It was just so much going on. And this is the type of fight that is so intriguing, the way it's broken down, the way these two styles match up. Can the Dwayne Ludwig sort of perfect student that Dillashaw is, counteract the power? Can what is Lineker going to do when he realizes that Dillashaw's nowhere to be hit? He's nowhere to be found, and Dillashaw is going to be coming in, pop, 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 always, and ending with a low kick or a body kick and throwing 5-punch combinations. Or is that what Lineker wants? Yeah, I'll take 2 or 3 of your punches to land one big one and win every exchange as I sit there and I chop down the tree. So this is going to be a crazy fight. How long till it takes for Lineker to get pissed off because Dillashaw's nowhere to be found, right?
There's a lot of unknowns here because we saw what happened when Lineker fought a guy who had advanced footwork in John Dodson. It was a little bit tougher for him. He couldn't finish John Dodson. John Dodson has much better footwork than a Michael McDonald has. TJ Dillashaw, when has he ever fought a power puncher like John Lineker? Much less since he transformed himself. You might as well throw out everything that happened with TJ Dillashaw before 2013 because he's a different fighter now, completely different. I mean, really, it's like the closest that he ever came to fighting that, in my estimation, is Mike Easton. And by then, Mike Easton's skills had just taken a nosedive. So it's the element of unknown and 2 guys. If Lineker wins, he's getting a title shot. If Dillashaw wins, he might get a title shot. It's going to be real close. So that element of unknown is something pretty special. Very similar to our co-main event, Dominic Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt. Now, the shit talk game, Dominic Cruz won it. He won it. I want to ask you how you feel about this Ronda Rousey media blackout, because my thing is I feel bad because it affects Dominic Cruz and it affects Cody Garbrandt. It affects those 2 people a lot. No Wednesday press conference today. Dana White did do a media scrum, which we will have coverage of on Fightful.com. The place where you can go for all of your live coverage. And we got some cool forums too. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us a thumbs up. But no open workouts. That hurts. It hurts sites like us, Joe, who don't have Ronda Rousey and Dominic Cruz for photo shoots all year. So, maybe we send a photographer there to get some shots for the site. What do you think of this media blackout?
I'm looking at the Jeopardy categories right now. I will go with what is horseshit for 500, Sean. It is. It's just complete. I hate it. I don't like it.
Answer. Before UFC 207, this once prominent fighter talked to absolutely fucking nobody.
It's garbage, man. It is complete garbage. And I don't care. I don't care what's going on with Ronda Rousey and everything. No, it's not cool. It's not cool. I don't know. You can say what you want, Ronda, about, you built this up. There were a lot of promos heading into this and did daytime television, blah, blah. I don't care. Listen, man, there are a lot of mainstream outlets that are covering this, covering these fights, sending a lot of their media over there. You know how hard it is, ladies and gentlemen, when, I recall vividly at Sportsnet when, we would go to certain things and, your Matt Hughes wouldn't be available when he's fighting Matt Serra. And the call I would get from the network is, that's nice. Go get him. Yeah. That's nice. You have up until X amount of time to get it on the 6 o'clock news. Go find him. Now, my job becomes 100 times harder because I got to start talking to Matt's people and blah, blah, or this person or that person and blah, 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 blah. It's just stupid. Like we're sending people down to cover the event, to cover a big pay-per-view show. Like, come out and just say no comment, or come out and say, look, man, I don't have much to say. I'm really focused on my fight, blah, blah. That is a lot better than speculation. Just come out and say, look, man, I appreciate all the media coming out here. I'd rather not answer a lot of questions. I want to come out here, say hi to everyone. I need to focus on getting my title back. I need to focus on whatever. Just come out for 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, head back to your room, go back to whatever you want to do. You don't have to answer any other questions. Just make a statement. Done.
Dana White said at the scrum,
and then people will run with that.
Yeah, Dana White said at the scrum that it won't affect other people, and it's definitely not ideal. But he said there are a lot of things that suck about this, but we're in a pretty crazy position. But she's one of the greatest ever to do it, and she's done a lot for the company and the sport. That being said, Cruz, Garbrandt. Cruz, a minus 225 favorite. Garbrandt plus 175. What do you think? Maybe too soon for Garbrandt?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's too soon. We've seen crazier things happen in MMA, Sean. You and I both know that.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a little too soon for Cody. I always find it strategic when a champion calls out a contender, not the other way around, because every contender wants a shot at the title. But when a champion comes out and says, yeah, this Cody Garbrandt kid and blah, 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 it's like, oh, wait a second, dude. Are you picking an easy fight? Which is okay because you're the champion and you can pick out whoever you want. It is called prize fighting, and there is a science and there's a very strategic manner to prize fighting, aka Roy Jones Jr. I mean, you can, or Floyd Mayweather, right? Like, I mean, prize fighting, there's a science to it, and the whole thing about prize fighting, and it goes back to one of my original instructors, a very brilliant man named Shaw Franco, would always say, he goes, look, man, if we're going to be whenever our guys become champions, if we can get an easier fight versus a contender and get the same money, why not? Right? So you look at Dominic Cruz calling out, because it wasn't Cody that called out Dominic Cruz, it was vice versa. Right? So I'm always kind of like,
You see that with Woodley calling out Nick Diaz instead of fighting Stephen Thompson or Donald Cerrone or Damian Maia or anybody like that too. Yeah, let's take the guy that hasn't won in 5 years.
But I also think with Tyron, that's a financial decision more than a competitor decision, right? I mean, come on, Nick Diaz is a big-ass payday for anybody, right? If I can't get George St. Pierre at 170, Nick Diaz is the next guy that's going to quote-unquote move that needle. So I get what Tyron is doing there, and you're right. I mean, yeah, let's take on a guy who hasn't competed in so long, who's going to have rust, and my power can probably break him. So I could see that happening. But in a division like at 135 at bantamweight, where there isn't that much money to be made as in comparison to other divisions, when Dominic does something like this, makes sense. It was also back in the day when Anderson Silva was calling out Michael Bisping. And this is when Anderson Silva, this is the pre-Chris Weidman Anderson Silva. Can we put him on our 8-man bracket? Or no? Okay. No, because he'd win it. But we should put post Chris Weidman Anderson Silva in this bracket. Yeah. So when he called out Michael Bisping back in the day, I'm like, that's not a fight. That's not a good fight for you, Anderson Silva. Like, that's an easy, quote-unquote, easy fight. My how times have changed. But, yeah, I think this line should be a bit further apart, to be honest with you. I think Dominic should be a bit more of a favorite in this fight, to be honest. But Cody does have that power, Sean. Let's be honest.
He does. He does. And like you said, we have seen crazier things in this world, like a ramen noodle cup walking around. You
need to put the word legendary before that sentence, please.
Ronda Rousey, Amanda Nunes. Now, I will sound like a broken record because we do a billion shows a week on Fightful.com. Ronda Rousey slightly favored. Here's the way I look at this, Joe. If Amanda Nunes fights this fight like she did against Shayna Baszler a couple years ago, fighting on the outside, kicking at the legs, probably a good night for Amanda Nunes. I think that if she gets in clinch range, she will not have nearly the success that Holly Holm did. No, I know Amanda Nunes has done a fair share of judo in her day. She's not half bad, actually. But Holly Holm prepared her entire career, her entire MMA career, to fight one woman. And that has been reflected in her last 2 fights. Amanda Nunes hasn't been doing that. Now, she's at a hell of a better camp. But to be honest, right now, you're at a better camp in your hotel room than Ronda Rousey's at right now. So, you training with that ramen noodle cup, Joe? If so, better camp. Here are my concerns with Ronda Rousey. You'll hear me talk about this on the show with Shane Helms on Friday as well, you guys. Tune into that one. We talk about the rules of pro wrestling. Ronda Rousey's strength is also her undoing. That judo, it's unbelievable. Clinch range, it's over. Just wrap it up, send it home. But she also boxes like she's a judo player. Her stance is just like a judo player's. And that benefits her with all that power. And I've said this before, wrestlers, you see that a lot. Guys like Tyron Woodley have that natural power, all that core strength, all that leg strength. But then when she gets hit, she doesn't go back to standing like a boxer. She keeps standing like a judo player. And that's not good. It's good if you're facing Betch Kohea and she's an absolute errand boy when it comes to MMA, which Betch Kohea is incredibly overrated. But hey, she got her fight, so whatever. Amanda Nunes ain't an errand boy, as I would say. She's real good, Joe. She's really good at this MMA stuff. I want to know your assessment and how you think the fight will go down.
This is a conversation that's been held here since I landed in Japan. There isn't one person picking Ronda Rousey here.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know if it has to do. There's a lot of moments in mixed martial artists' careers that define them, and a lot of them for me are not what the average consumer looks at. And I looked at Amanda Nunes as basically her precision, busting up Miesha Tate's nose in that fight, and realizing, holy smokes, you are fast. Your hands are pretty fast. You got some precision, and you are relentless. And I just think if Ronda Rousey's nose gets tagged like that, it's going to be an ugly evening. What does she do at that point there? Because this is the amount of pressure on Ronda Rousey right now. Because you can make there's like that the fine line between being able to handle the pressure, which she can do because she's done it for so long as the face of women's MMA, and breaking under that pressure, which we've seen her do on a few different occasions, most specifically at the pre-fight press conference when they were nose to nose and she went backstage. And then what happened in the devastation, the emotional devastation of losing to Holly Holm and going into seclusion. There's a fine line there. She's basically walking a tightrope, and that tightrope is made of tooth floss. There's a lot of pressure on Ronda Rousey here, and it's going to be interesting to see that if she does get in trouble in this fight, what ends up happening. No, there's no more beautiful story than for Ronda Rousey fans, than for Ronda Rousey to come out here and absolutely destroy Amanda Nunes and absolutely kill her and finish her off in less than a round and blah, 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 blah with her fabled armbar. Nothing would make them happier. But an interesting dichotomy would happen if Amanda Nunes puts an ass whooping on Ronda Rousey, and there's a damn good case that can happen here. When these two tangle. So it's going to be an interesting fight. I'm going to lean towards Amanda in this fight. I think she's going to be able to pull this off.
Worth noting, the number of times Amanda Nunes has been hit in her victories outside of the Shevchenko fight, which I will talk about in 1 second. 3, Miesha Tate. 2, Sarah McMahon. 1, Shayna Baszler. 1, Jermaine Durandamy. 3, Sheila Gath. 3, Julia Budd. Now, Valentina Shevchenko, go ahead and put her in a kickboxing fight with Ronda Rousey. Tell me how that works out. Ronda Rousey ain't winning that. She's a different kind of striker. Now, Valentina Shevchenko was able to take Amanda Nunes down. Shevchenko is much smaller than Ronda Rousey. Not nearly as experienced as a grappler. Ronda Rousey, and that went to the 3rd round. Now, if Ronda Rousey fights like she did against Holly Holm, it might go 2 rounds, maybe 1. If she fights like, and a lot of Rousey's success were people running at her and her saying, yo, I medaled in judo, dumbass, and then sending them overhead and tapping them out. But if Ronda Rousey can employ that clinch game, which is so like, it's crazy because she gets her ass kicked once, and the ass kicking was so bad. And yeah, there's a dead horse over here that I will continue to massacre. Her coaching was so bad and is so bad that people almost let everything that happened before that fight go. Because they were like, okay, well, a blueprint has been drawn. But here's the thing. Edmund Taverdian didn't have a blueprint ready. I don't want to say he didn't have a blueprint ready, because when Ronda Rousey started that fight, she was circling away from the power leg of Holly Holm, but she got tagged and it all went out the window. But when she got tagged and it all went out the window, her coach said, beautiful, you're doing good, champ. That's not very good. Another element of the unknown. How will Ronda Rousey react? How will the media, not having that media schedule, affect her? How will Amanda Nunes fight? Because she is a strong starter and she fades. She does fade. Ronda Rousey, we've seen a little bit of both. She can get stronger as the fight goes on, or she can get popped in the face repeatedly, and there goes that energy bar. Hell of a main event we have here, Joe. It's a special, unique talent against that it has crossed over against a special, unique talent that is just ready to knock her off. I can't wait for this one.
Yep. For the sake of mixed martial arts business, Ronda Rousey, win. For the sake of the mixed martial arts hardcore fans, Amanda, win. It's going to be I can't wait to see it. I love the proper analogy to use when you're talking about any sort of main event or co-main event or mixed martial arts bout in general is the story or the stories and the angles. And this one has many of them. And that's why this fight is so intriguing, not just to people outside of our bubble, Sean, but to guys like me and you and to the hardcores and the people that live and breathe this sport, because there's so much at stake in this fight here. There's so many answers to the questions that we want to have addressed. So yeah, I can't wait for it to go down, and hopefully I'll be able to. Jesus, Sean, I've got to do some calculations here. Am I going to be awake for this thing? I don't know. I don't know what time it starts. I think it goes to 7:00 Eastern. No, 8:00 Eastern are the prelims, or 6:30 is
the pay-per-view portion starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, so that would be noon Eastern your time.
Noon Eastern. I might be able to watch this thing.
Hey.
Yes. Hey. It'll be Rizin commentary, take a break. UFC, take a break. Rizin.
We have a similar thing. Like, we have an Australian girl who does a podcast with her on occasion, who does a podcast with us on occasion, and she is able to wake up in the mornings and watch Raw and SmackDown and then do our show. So, hey, sometimes it works out. Joe, tell the people where they can follow you on Twitter.
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook at Showdown Joe. Love to hear your questions. Love to hear your thoughts. We all know I will get ripped apart for my commentary because of my Canadian accent. It happens. For those that have followed me long enough, you realize I could give a rat's ass about what anyone says about my comments. I've been hearing, or my accent, I've been hearing about it downstairs, but these are my friends, my American friends who always say, I've had a couple that people know fairly well, fighters and managers that came out to me and flat out said to me, Joe, do they know that Canadian isn't English and you're doing the English play-by-play for Rizin? I said, that's not one I've ever heard before in my life, so that's you're not going to affect me. And they're like, oh, nothing affects Joe anymore. I'm like, listen, this is my accent. I mean, if you were doing play-by-play, Sean, or someone from New Jersey or New York or someone from Louisiana or someone from Texas, you know, we all have accents. This is mine. This is the one that I speak with, and this is the one that you'll be hearing doing the English play-by-play for Rizin. So for all of you people that plan on hating me on social media, thumbs up. I'll be watching. I'll be reading. I'll probably give you just a smiley face. But the bottom line is I am going to be calling 2 awesome events, and in between them, get to watch UFC and hopefully get to talk to my boy Sean and to have all you people listening in and watching in and having a good time with us.
Guys, we have some big changes to Fightful in the new year. Those will be revealed very soon. Cool stuff coming. Register at Fightful.com. Get access to our forums, exclusive financial analysis, our Thursday Matt Riddle podcast, our Friday Shane Helms podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us a thumbs up. Share the stuff. Share the viewing parties. Come hang out. Talk some trash. You're not smarter than me, but I'll let you feel kind of smart. Maybe I'll slip in and say something stupid. I don't know. But we're streaming Rizin both nights. Joe, it was a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Guys, we're out.